Greetings, fellow Godless Rockers. I'm Steve.
And I'm Tally from
Monster on Sunday.
In this week's BAM vlog, we'll talk about evolution. Is it fact or just a theory? So stay tuned for episode 29 of Godless Rockers.
All right, so this is an ongoing, frustrating topic for atheists. Depending on the religion, they all have creation stories, and every one of them are wrong. Yes, I said it. Wrong! Why are they all wrong? There's an easy answer. It's because of what we know about evolution. Evolution is a controversial subject, but it's not controversial among scientists at all. Repeat, it is not controversial among scientists.
The Darwinian concept of evolution and natural selection is profoundly verified, not just by the fossil record.
Well, we're in fossils in transition.
Excuse me. Not just by the clear experience of artificial selection, but by the record in the nucleic acids, which is obtained by DNA sequencing, in which we can see the similarities and differences of organisms and trace their evolutionary past.
In other words, you've got this
history.
Theory with a gaping hole in it.
There's no gaping.
It doesn't cause you to question the theory.
There's no gaping holes.
Unfortunately, we laymen are subjected to a world of misinformation propelled by the religious.
Evolution is a theory written by a deranged man, okay? It is a theory written by a racist man.
The Bible tells us that God created man in his own image, male and female, he created them. And I believe that, Mr. Speaker. But let's also bring into the minds of all of our children all of the theories about the unknowable that some bright day in the future, through science and perhaps through faith, we will find the truth of from whence we come. And I yield back.
I believe that I give the evolutionary view equal time, and I believe I give it a fair shake. I believe I give the creation view a fair shake.
Well, in my class, yes, they did.
How many is that? I mean,
I teach 60 year 10 students, so right. 60 of them.
And all 60 of them end up rejecting evolution?
Yes, because obviously they have their beliefs.
Wow, so the science on evolution these days is at our fingertips. A simple search online to a reputable science source reveals the truth. But unfortunately, misinformation is abundant on this topic in the church and online. And you have to vet your sources. Obviously, you can't go to Christianity.com to find accurate information about any science topic. And it's not hard to see why. The ideas of Darwin, who published his book On the Origin of Species, has proved to be a major stumbling block to religious belief based on the Bible since its release in 1859. And that's not surprising since it flies in the face of creation stories in every holy book out there. And as a result, there is now an entire anti-science movement called creationism, pushing the intelligent design theory. Young Earth creationists are one of the most fervorous groups combating the evidence for evolution. And by combating, I mean making up bullshit.
That's right. Unfortunately, there are religious organizations out there who are trying to dispel evolution, and for good reason. They see it as detrimental to the teaching of the Bible. Basically, that evolution pretty much renders the Bible, and therefore God, obsolete. If you accept evolution to be true, then that means that the creation story in your doctrine is a lie. If evolution is true, then the creation story is just that, a story, and not a historical account of how human beings began to exist here on Earth.
And so we get it. The idea of evolution is a harsh reality to cope with if you believe in the Bible, and one not readily accepted by the church. But it's been around for almost 160 years. Literally, that's how long evolution has withheld the test of time and how it has only gotten stronger and stronger with new evidence.
Unfortunately, churches are propelling evolution as false in efforts to keep their followers believing in their doctrines. Because of this, there are quite a few common misunderstandings out there about evolution. For example, when people say that evolution is just a theory.
So that word theory that these people are using is not representing a scientific theory, which is completely different than saying, well, it's just a hunch. No, a scientific theory is not just some wild assertion. It has a hypothesis that has been rigorously tested in several fields of science, and in the case of evolution, all fields of science concur. And unless you're a science conspiracy theorist, then you know that science is the best tool we have for figuring out what is true about our world and about us as a species. And so let's discuss what is going on with these religion-based anti-science organizations and how it affects scientifically uneducated people.
Okay, so one way that religion is propelling this idea is through creationism and intelligent design, which they have several organizations in the United States and around the world that are propelling these ideas and trying to get them to be taught in the science classroom so they can brainwash our children while they're young into believing that the world was created by a God and the universe and everything.
Yeah, a very short time ago.
Yeah,
like
very short time ago.
6 to 10,000 years ago, instead of billions of years.
Yeah, or intelligent design, they may not stick quite so strictly to the 6,000 year, but they want you to know that God was involved.
Yes.
And that's why there's so many species of animals on this planet. It's because God did it.
And a big part of that is that they are banking on the ignorance of the people listening. So
yeah.
If it's getting, well, first I think these organizations come up with these ideas and then they put the misinformation out there to the world. And then I think pastors of churches and church members also, but pastors of churches and heads of churches grab onto it and go, oh, intelligent design, it sounds, science-y. I remember going to a church and there was an intelligent design pamphlet that my brother wanted me to read through. So these things then get passed out to church members, and pastors in the pulpit are preaching against evolution and for these other things, which are not sciencey in any way. They might sound like they have a lot of science jargon, like terms and things, so it's confusing, and it kind of can come off sounding maybe legit, but the problem is it's not legit. There's absolutely no evidence behind intelligent design.
But basically, when they're passing out these materials and things, they're hoping that you don't look it up and that you don't actually consult what we know to be true. We know through the fossil record, we know through DNA, we know through all sorts of dating techniques that evolution is a real thing and that it's done through natural selection, and that's just the way it is.
This information, anybody in the world, if they just have an internet connection, it's just a click of a button away. So the problem is, though, is a lot of people don't know how to vet their sources. Mm-hmm. And so, like we said earlier, they're going to, IamAProudChristian.com looking for science information. That's not what you want to do. You need to go to science to see what science has to say on something, because otherwise you're getting misinformation, most likely. You're getting a biased interpretation that is twisting things all around and just basically bullshitting you. So my brother believes in young earth creationism. Mm-hmm. He thinks the world, at least he did at a time tell me, I don't know if he still does, but at some time ago he told me that he believes the world is between 6,000 and 10,000 years old. So I don't really know what I want to say about that. I mean, he believes a lot of crazy things. This is just yet another one of a long list, guys, a long list. At least from what he's told me, he thinks science is something that a bunch of people are sitting around and fabricating. He doesn't understand how the scientific method works, and
well, I think it goes deeper than that, because a lot of these people, what they think is that science is some kind of thing that was devised by Satan to fool everybody into thinking that God's word isn't true. And they will just reject outright the evidence. And a lot of them won't even go and look and see what the evidence is. Because if they did, the evidence would be so overwhelming that they would have to change their minds. If they actually looked at the evidence, evolution is one of the most evidenced theories that exist. There's so much information out there. It's just undeniable and ridiculous to think that if you actually looked into it, that you could deny and call yourself any sort of a rational person.
So there's all these different areas of science that study different aspects of evolution, and they all concur. But let's just take one like DNA. Just the DNA alone, by itself, confirms evolution. You don't even need the others. But then there's also the fossil record, which is ridiculously enormous, vast body of evidence that all supports evolution. And then there's others too.
Like geology.
Yeah. So across all these different scientific disciplines, they all concur, okay? It's like there isn't any evidence for something that goes against evolution.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. That's reality.
And I think a lot of us have experienced within our school system or within our churches where somebody tried to sell you a bit of bad science. Now, I remember when I was in high school, they had like a video on evolution, and before they would play it, they would say, well, it's just a theory. If you believe in God, just take this with a grain of salt, and here we go. And that was in a public high school. And I just imagine that was in Vermont. I imagine in some place like Texas, how much worse would it be, where they've actually gotten approval to print in some of the books, the science textbooks, that this is, I don't remember exactly what it is, so I guess I'll show it on the screen.
It's almost like a warning label.
Yeah, like a warning label.
In the beginning.
This isn't, not all scientists agree on this. Well, they pretty much do. Also, when I was growing up in the Mormon church, if you're going to take the Bible literally, there's a problem, because you can figure out based on how long different people lived and when this happened and when that happened in the Bible, you can come up with this number that the earth is some 6,000 years old. Well, that doesn't match anything from the geological record, from the evolutionary record, cosmology. All of that says the earth is way ridiculously older than 6,000 years old.
Mm-hmm. It's not like they're off a little bit.
No.
Their theories are like, couldn't be farther.
Yeah, well, the earth is something
on the
like,
map of what evolution says to what they think it is. I mean, it's other ends of the
like
spectrum.
4.5 billion years old, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The universe is like 14 billion years old or something like that. So yeah, their understanding of when the universe came to be is so ridiculously off. And one of the things that they try to tell me, in as if this would make a big difference when I was going to church, is that, oh, well, a day really meant more like 1,000 years.
My brother tried to say something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's God's Bible. He says he created the world in 7 days, but that doesn't really mean 7 days. Like, each of those days is something like that. 1,000 years or 10,000 years, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, if it's 1,000 years, then still that's maybe 12,000 years old at the best, maybe 13,000. Yeah, not any closer. Not
and also,
really any closer at all.
Also, that logic does not freaking work when you try to apply it to other things in the Bible, where God said Moses was 802 years old or whatever it was. Oh, well, then does that mean he was actually 8,000 years old?
It's special pleading for God's special days of creation. And it doesn't make any sense. It's just ridiculous. So, but it's to somebody who's indoctrinated, you go, oh, okay, well, maybe it's a little bit older. You don't think about what the difference between 6,000, 13,000, and 4.5 billion years is. How insignificant and how ridiculously off that is, and how untrustworthy any source that had that much of a difference would be. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about this con. Let's just call it a con. That's what it is. It's a con. Kind of like in our episode, Liars for Jesus, we talked about how...
Okay, what's a con? Intelligent design, creationism?
Yeah, okay. The whole plea for like evolution is some lie from Satan or something. Uh-huh. The whole thing is basically a con. And it may be that those people lying for Jesus don't know they're lying, like we discussed in that episode. Those are actually some of the most dangerous people who don't know that they're lying. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, what's going on here. There could be some people who know better, and they're just literally taking people's money. They're taking advantage of people being uneducated in science and feeding them this information, and then those people will do anything for the church and for them.
Well, first let's explain what a con is. So basically, when somebody's conning you, whether it's for Jesus or it's for your retirement money, first thing they have to do is win your confidence. In order to do that, they have a saying that they put you under the ether. So what that means is they get your emotions going, and this is what they do when they try to sell this bill of goods that evolution never happened. They're going to get your feelings going, telling you how Jesus died for you, you're unworthy, and this happened, and the Bible is true. And to people that are willing to believe, that gets their emotions up, and they're ready to believe whatever their pastor, whatever the preacher, whatever, maybe in this case a politician perhaps, that's trying to get intelligent design into schools, has to say. Once they get them under the ether, then they can tell them what they want, and people, since they are in an emotional state, will not be as rational about these things. And the tough thing about anything dealing with science is that you need to have a rational mindset in order to digest and understand these concepts. Mm-hmm. You cannot be in an emotional state like that and have any chance of understanding these things. Mm-hmm. You have to be ready to accept scientific evidence. Mm-hmm. So, and then this is used for the own ends and own purposes of the people that are leading these people into this con. Now, whether they're aware, like you said, whether they know that they're conning their flock or not, it doesn't really matter. The consequence is the same. They are taking advantage of these people in order to place our false teachings into the science classroom in order to gain benefit for themselves, whether it's to keep younger people in the church, to keep people uneducated, to keep them ignorant, and to keep it easy for them to keep people in their congregation. Whatever it is, it benefits these people to have science mistaught. It's advantageous for them.
Well, you know, the most obvious reason that comes to mind instantly for me is that evolution, you know, it really does totally contradict, you know, the creation story, like Adam and Eve.
Right.
If evolution is true, then God didn't make Adam and Eve, okay? Like, we evolved from other creatures. So that never happened. That makes it literally not a historical account.
He certainly didn't make Eve from Adam's rib. That doesn't jive with evolution in any way.
Or making Adam from some dust from the earth.
From the earth, yeah. No.
I just said yeah, and you just said no at the same time. That was funny.
Yeah. No. Yeah as in no, that wouldn't make any sense.
So, I mean, why are we talking about this? You know, we're not scientists. We're just atheists. We play in a band. And why are we talking about this? Really, it's because this whole thing is so ridiculous, and it's really quite bothersome that this, not just bothersome, like, it's actually really detrimental, we think, because in this day and age, it's so ridiculous and unfortunate that human beings can believe in something that is so, there's just nothing to support it at all. It's just literally believing something that somebody else said. I mean, it almost isn't anything more than that. Even their pamphlets and brochures that look all fancy, there's no evidence backing any of it. It's just bald-faced lies and claims that just get spread about, basically. It's almost like a rumor that's gotten out of hand. Almost, you know? Mm-hmm. A silly little story that got told, and bazillions of people believe it readily because they trust their church, they trust their pastors, they trust their peers in their, you know, little religious worlds, their, you know, the Bible bubble, as we're calling it. So it's really unfortunate, you know. I could compare this to, like, say, the Flat Earth Society. Yes, there is a such society. There is a real group of people out there who do not believe our planet is a round shape. There are actual human beings, adult people, that have formed a whole society around thinking that the earth is flat. Seriously. Okay? Can you imagine if, you know, if you're religious and you can't get why this is frustrating? Like, imagine if the Flat Earth Society was, like, huge and, like, tons and tons and tons, millions and millions of people believe in it. They think it's real, okay? And you're like, what land are you living in? It feels like, why are we living in this like prehistoric time or something mentally, when we have all these tools, the tools of science to show us what's real, and you're just disregarding it completely and saying the world's flat.
In conclusion, evolution is both a fact and a theory. Deal with it, bitches.
Yeah! Oh, they can't see it. Ooh!
Each of us have the ability to research it for ourselves, so there's no reason for the anti-science mongering to continue if we can just learn how to think critically, vet our sources, and have a basic understanding of science.
Which isn't really that hard, you guys. You can do it. And please, do it for the sake of our future. We must come together on a lot of issues facing the survival of our species, and science is simply the best tool we have to help us figure out bigger issues facing mankind. Please, just look at the evidence before you dismiss it, because someone told you it's not true.
This seems to be a common theme in our shows, but critical thinking and a skeptical mindset are crucial to forming as true of beliefs as possible.
Let's do this!
So let us know if you agree with our take on the subject in the comments below.
Tune in next week where we discuss how God hates children.
Check out last week's vlog, Cults versus Religions, right here.
And if you enjoyed this video, please join our support team at patreon.com/Monster on Sunday.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next Sunday at noon.
We're Monster on Sunday. Thanks for joining us on Godless Rockers.